Okay, welcome everyone to the kickoff of the Stream Health Initiative. We are so glad you chose to join us. My name is Serena Gruya, and I'm the Public Engagement Specialist with the county. Today, we'll share a brief introduction to the topic of stream health, including the current conditions of our waters, and learn about the timeline and ways you can participate in this project. But before that, I noticed at least one person's new to Zoom. We'd like to share some quick tips about Zoom for anyone who hasn't had a chance to experience a virtual meeting on this platform. Today will be primarily presentation-based with some time reserved for questions at the end. For those of you viewing by computer, tablet, or smartphone, you'll see a Q&A icon in the webinar toolbar located at the bottom of your screen. During the presentation, you may enter questions into that module, and we'll either answer them in real time or reserve them for the Q&A period after the presentation. If you have a question and have called in by phone, please reserve that question until the end, and then you can raise your virtual hand by pushing *9. When it is time for questions, we'll unmute you, and you'll be able to ask your question. This presentation is being recorded and will be available online next week. Okay, and now it is my pleasure to introduce our Stream Health team. First, we have our Natural Resources Manager, Kim Biasioli. She enjoys swimming and river floats. Next is Frank Pohl. He's our county engineer, and he enjoys canoeing, kayaking, and swimming. Bill Fritz is our process manager. Bill has always loved the water. His first experience with the water was boating as a baby in a homemade sailboat. He says, if I can float on it, I want to float. If I can swim in it, I want to swim. And if there might be fish in it, I will give it a try. Next up is Greg Harper. He's our Chief of Environmental Services. Greg enjoys kayaking. Here's Laurel Williamson. She's our Water Stewardship Manager. Laurel enjoys wading with her kids in the shallows of Buck Mountain Creek and volunteering as a water monitor with the Rivanna Conservation Alliance. Next, here's Scott Clark. Scott enjoys kayaking, canoeing, and nature photography, and he's a senior planner here at the county. There's Stavros Kalos. He's our water resources engineer, and he enjoys tubing and bicycle touring. And that's me. I'm Serena Gruya, your public engagement specialist, and I enjoy fishing and kayaking with my family. And now over to Kim, who will get us into the real reason you're all here, the stream health content.
Thank you, Serena, and thank you everyone out there for joining us today. And thank you for that nice introduction to our whole stream health team. So, I might be the public face that you see as we go through this project, but I really have such a strong team supporting me and so much expertise in planning and engineering and water resources on the team. So I'm really grateful for that. And so again, I'm Kim Biasioli. I'm the Natural Resources Manager for Albemarle County. And today we're going to mainly focus on talking about the Stream Health Initiative project and also ways that you as participants in the community can get involved. This is our first kickoff meeting. So we're really at the beginning of this phase of the project. And because of that, everything we talk about today with respect to stream health is going to be really high level, and we're going to save the more technical information and more involved discussions for a little bit later in the process. And I'll talk more about that process today here as well. So I'm going to start by just zooming way out and giving this picture of where Albemarle is located within our major watersheds. And, for those of you who might not know this term, a watershed is essentially just an area of land where all of the water on the landscape is draining into a common place. So that could be a larger river or a smaller creek or water body. So here you can see Albemarle is located almost entirely within the James River watershed. That's the green on this map. And the whole James River watershed is within the Chesapeake Bay watershed. which of course drains into the Chesapeake Bay. And that's important because it really influences a lot of the programs and policies that we have locally related to water resource protection. And so within these major watersheds are smaller watersheds like the Rivanna, and within those smaller watersheds, even smaller sub-watersheds. So zooming in now on Albemarle County, you can see, just how much of the county is really covered by water. Our county's GIS hydrography layer shows that we have over 2,500 miles of streams and rivers. And that includes these larger rivers, some of them named here, and also the smaller unnamed streams. So I want to touch on just briefly how we're defining a healthy stream for the purposes of this project, and also why we're focusing on improving stream health in Albemarle County. So, when we talk about stream health, we're really talking about the health of all of these waterways that we just looked at. So those larger rivers, but also, perennial streams that are flowing all year round, and those smaller intermittent streams that only flow for part of the year. And when we talk about healthy streams or stream health, we're talking about not just the water quality and the water itself, but also the integrity and the stability of the riparian area. So that land that's adjacent to the waterway. And so for the purposes of this project, when we talk about stream health, we're really talking about the health of all of these waterways and the health of the whole system, not just the water. So there's a lot of reasons we're focusing on stream health in Albemarle County. And one of the main reasons is that these healthy stream systems and good quality riparian areas are providing us and our community with so many benefits, to residents and to businesses and industries, and of course, to the natural environment as well. And when we talk about those benefits, one of the first things that often comes to mind is our drinking water. So in Albemarle, we get all of our drinking water from local sources. And since the majority of our stream systems are all connected to these drinking water reservoirs, when we're protecting them, that means we're also protecting the quality of that local drinking water supply. So when the water flowing into these reservoirs is in better shape, it doesn't need to be treated as heavily to make it safe for drinking. So there's also an opportunity for cost savings there. And I included this photo of a wellhead here also to just help remind us that a lot of the things that we might consider doing to protect stream health and these stream systems is also going to protect the groundwater that we get from our wells. So poll time. We have a couple of interactive polls today so that we can hear from you and instead of you just hearing from me. So that should pop up on your screen. And if you would just share with us where you get your drinking water at home, if you know. Give folks another minute. Looks like almost an even split between reservoir and well, but more from a well. That's interesting. Last night it was more from a reservoir, and we didn't have any spring answers last night. Thank you for doing that. So of course, I talked about drinking water, but clean water, it's important to us for of so many other reasons, as you all know, recreation and things like swimming, fishing, and boating, and also for growing food and producing goods. And of course, healthy stream systems are also so critically important for providing good quality habitat for plants and animals, those that live in the water and also on land. and also for providing connectivity on the landscape and corridors for wildlife to move across the landscape. So another major benefit of maintaining healthy stream systems that is not always something that we think about is flood protection. And, this has really come to the fore in recent years here in Albemarle County, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware. We've all really seen these firsthand, these impacts of major flooding events in recent years, in 2018, and then again more recently. And there's a lot of research that shows that when there's more vegetation on the landscape, and especially adjacent to streams and rivers, this really helps to slow down the movement of stormwater runoff and allow for that groundwater to recharge. And this has the effect of ultimately reducing the frequency and intensity of these flood events. So it allows for more water to also flow in streams when we have dry periods. So that vegetation on the landscape really is helping to regulate water flow all year round. So here's a few more examples of those flooding impacts that we've seen recently in the county. And these are, of course, really extreme examples, but the point here is to illustrate that not protecting these stream systems can have major economic impacts. So, here on the right, there's impacts in terms of the damage and potential loss to personal property from erosion, and also damage to infrastructure, when roads are collapsing. And I also mentioned earlier the cost of additional cost of treating drinking water. And so for agriculture, there are economic impacts as well. So of course, things like property and soil loss are going to be a problem for farms as well. But having good water quality it's also been shown to reduce illness in livestock, and by doing that, ultimately reduce vet bills as well. So all this is not to say that, protecting stream health is going to eliminate all these problems, but it does tell us that we have some opportunities to mitigate or reduce some of these impacts. So we have another polling question. This time, if you would, please put your answers in the chat. So just let us know, what is your favorite Albemarle County waterway? And that could be the stream or river that you live near, or, where you spend the most time, or just the one that you care the most about.
We're seeing Beaver Creek Reservoir, Mormons River, the Rivanna Trail, Ivy Creek, Mormons, Rivanna, a lot of Rivanna, Riverview, Mormons River. Thank you for responding. Licking Hole Basin, the Mullinax Creek, but I boat the Rockfish, Cove Creek, the creek in my backyard, Mint Springs, Beaver Creek, Mormons.
All right, thank you. You can keep typing away if in the chat. So that's really helpful. That will give us a sense of, what areas of the county we have geographically represented here today, and what areas you all are most interested in. So I mentioned a few of the benefits of protecting and improving stream health, for clean drinking water and for things like recreation and for wildlife and agriculture. And so we're focusing on stream health for all of those benefits to our community. But another reason is that when we look at the current status of our water resources in the county, there are some known issues that could be addressed. So we know, for example, with data collected by the Rivanna Conservation Alliance and the Department of Environmental Quality, that over half of the miles of streams and rivers that have been tested in Albemarle County are impaired. And so for those of you who may not be familiar with this term, when we talk about impairments, or when a stream is impaired, that essentially means that it's not meeting the state water quality standards that have been established for a particular use. So it may not be meeting the standards for drinking water or for swimming or fishing. So there's different types of impairments, and I'm not going to get into all of the terms now, but essentially when we look at this map, any of the colored streams that you see that are not blue are considered to be impaired for one reason or another. And this is just a sample because we know that DEQ has only assessed a small subset of all of the streams and rivers in the county. So in terms of current conditions, we also know that there are, some areas of the county where there's a high percentage of streams with intact and vegetated riparian buffers, and other parts of the county where there's a lot more unbuffered streams. And so with this map, this is data compiled, an analysis done by the Chesapeake Conservancy. What we're looking at here is sub-watersheds within the county. And what they did was look at the percent of area within 35 feet of a stream that does not have natural vegetation within that sub-watershed. So basically the red areas have the fewest buffers, and then going from red to orange to yellow to green, with the darkest green areas having the most stream buffers. And Laurel just put, I think, in the chat that these maps are available on our Stream Health website if you want to dig in a little bit more. So one more condition that I want to highlight today is land cover. And, most of Albemarle is forested, of course, about 72%. And we have about 24% that's open and 3% that is classified as impervious or developed. But when we look at and compare land use data over the past 20 years, we do see that there has been a loss of forest and an increase in development and other types of land cover in the county. And this is important because there's research that indicates that land cover is actually directly related to stream health. And we know that as land use within a watershed starts to intensify, that's when we really start to see a decline in stream health. And so, for example, the Stroud Water Research Center says in their research studies that percent forest cover within a watershed is the single best predictor of stream health. And this makes sense because, we know that forests are particularly good at stabilizing soil and filtering stormwater, and ultimately at preventing pollutants from reaching our waterways. So these are just a few examples of some of the conditions within our watersheds and some of the factors that are influencing stream health. But there's a lot of other factors that can influence stream health. So, if you would just share in the chat, what are some of those other factors that you think are important that might be influencing stream health?
Thanks, Lonnie. He suggested invasive species, non-point source pollutants, ag runoff, seeing livestock, large animal waste, acid rain, the overuse of fertilizers, cows, E. coli, sedimentation from development runoff, litter, planning and development policies related to land cover changes, fertilizers, erosion and runoff, dog poop, in-stream habitat, invasives of all kinds, runoff flashiness, landowners mow their stream banks, mowing up to the lake edges, development and construction, pollution, animals in the creek. Thank you for those contributions. Oh, dumping and trash. Yep.
Thank you.
Improper septic. Thank you.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and keep chatting if you like. I'm going to continue on. So I talked about some of the benefits of healthy streams and also, some of the issues that we're facing here in Albemarle. And these are some of the reasons that we're kicking off this stream health initiative today. But, we're also starting this project because the county has a commitment to protecting water resources for its residents. And we believe that we could be better stewards of these resources. And so we're hoping that, with your input and your guidance, we can figure out the best ways to do that. So that brings me to the goal of this project. And the goal is to develop strategies for improving stream health and water quality in Albemarle County. And we're really striving to do this using a really inclusive and collaborative process. So if you all are aware of people who, might not be at the table, or groups or organizations that we should reach out to, and please let us know who they are and how we might do that. All right, we're getting you involved a lot here today. Another poll. So this is not a brand new project, and we know that some of you were involved previously to some degree. So if you don't mind just sharing if you have been previously involved in the Stream Health Initiative, and if so, in what capacity? Okay. Give you another moment here. Oh, there we go. Looks like most of the people have not been involved previously in the project, but some have. And last night we had more like 90% who had not been involved. So more of you today who were previously involved, it looks like. Thank you for doing that. So I'm going to move into talking a little bit more about the history of this project and where this all started, and then move into phase 2 and where we're going. So when this project originally started, there was a public input process, and there were 3 stakeholder meetings that were held, one with the development community, one with the conservation community, and one with the farming and forestry communities. And that public input process really started, and it grew out of the first objective of the county's brand new natural resources program, which was to conduct a thorough public review of the stream buffer requirements in the county's water protection ordinance. And so after that public review process, the Board of Supervisors directed staff to develop strategies for improving stream health and water quality in the county. And so since then, it's broadened out a bit. And so those strategies, they might be related to stream buffers and the water protection ordinance. And that is where this all started. But there's nothing at this point that is limiting it to that. And we're certainly open to, exploring all different types of policy options and programmatic solutions, educational opportunities, and partnerships as well. So those stakeholder meetings in 2017, they've really resulted in a lot of meaningful discussion and generated ideas that we are taking into account, and that's really helping to provide a foundation and a basis for the current project work to build on. So at that time, because the scope of this project was so broad, and in order to try to focus the effort in a more efficient way, after that public input process in 2017, the Stream Health Initiative project was divided into 2 phases. And so phase 1 started right away, and that was more focused on development. And so staff worked with the development community and worked on developing strategies for improving stream health related to development. And I want to just note here that this has sometimes been described as the development area phase, but since development, of course, occurs throughout the county, the proposals and strategies that were developed actually also apply throughout the county. And I'll talk more in a moment about that development related work and some of the outcomes from phase 1. But phase 2, which is what we're focusing on now, is going to be focused on rural land use issues and strategies for improving stream health. And that is really specific to the rural area. Okay, so we're almost to the point where we get to talk about where we're going with phase 2. But first, I want to just take a quick look back at what happened in phase 1 and some of the key outcomes of that process. So I mentioned there was the public input process, and after that, staff worked with a stakeholder work group and also members of the community to create these development-related proposals. So there were 13 proposals developed, and again, they collaborated with the work group, but also with the Planning Commission and the development community and the Board of Supervisors. So some of the key outcomes of that work were a zoning text amendment and updates to the water protection ordinance that require additional erosion and sediment control measures. Increasing mitigation for stream buffer impacts when development affecting a stream buffer is unavoidable. Increasing fees for violations of the water protection ordinance. Simplifying and clarifying language in the water protection ordinance, and providing education and outreach related to improving stream health. So I described those as outcomes, but work on those phase 1 proposals is ongoing, and we haven't fully implemented all of them yet. So we're going to keep plugging along at that. So phase 2 will be focused on the rural area of the county. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what we mean when we say rural area, this is everything on this map that is green. And it works out to be about 95% of the land area in the county. And so we're not talking about rural areas just generally. These are actually geographically designated areas in the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan says that the goal of the rural area is to have thriving farms and forests, traditional crossroads communities, protected scenic areas, historic sites, and preserved natural resources. Okay, so now I'm going to share a little bit about our overall plan and timeline for phase 2 of this project. And so our timeline starting now in January with the intent of the endpoint of this being towards the end of the year. And at that endpoint is when we will be bringing final recommendations for improving stream health in the rural area to the Board of Supervisors. So to help us lay out this process, both for ourselves and also for you as the participants, we have defined these 4 stages as 3-month intervals. But we anticipate, of course, that these intervals, these timeframes are not absolute, and some of these stages are likely to overlap. So the first stage is really what we think of as the discovery phase. So we're hoping to learn, what is most important to you. And so we'll be providing you with opportunities to share what you know. And, especially because we know that a lot of you out there have professional experience and technical expertise, and even maybe personal experiences that will be relevant to what we're doing. And so that's going to really help us understand what's important and what we might focus on as we move forward. We're also hoping that during this stage, you can help us start to identify, what the issues are and what types of challenges we're going to face related to improving stream health, and specifically in the rural area. I want to emphasize that, the input that we receive from you, the participants, during this stage is going to be really, really important in helping us guide and develop the focus for the rest of this project. So the second stage, which we anticipate will start in April, at this point, we're going to start we're going to continue to identify and define the challenges, but we are also hoping we will be starting to define opportunities to work together and hopefully to achieve mutual goals. So during this time, we are going to start exploring some different concepts and different solutions for improving stream health in the rural area, and then discuss what options we might pursue. So during this stage, we will probably be mainly collaborating with a smaller work group, but we also plan to continue exchanging ideas and information with the public, and we will adjust our approach as needed. All right, so the third stage of this project, but it's going to start in July, the develop stage, and hopefully by this point, we will have enough information to start really developing and analyzing specific proposals. And so again, we plan to be working primarily with this smaller work group. And at this point, we'll have a focus on evaluating and hopefully finalizing some of these proposals. At this stage, we will also be likely involving the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission, to help provide us with input and help us work through some of the details and also the feasibility of each proposal. So in this stage and all throughout the project, we hope to have a really open and transparent process. So we're going to continue to maintain that feedback loop of really providing information out to the community and hopefully receiving input back as well. And then finally, in the last stage of this project, we are hoping to make some decisions, and these will be final decisions about, which of the options we have chosen to ultimately move forward with. We anticipate that this is the point where we'll be receiving any final input from the community and then making our final recommendations to the board. So we recognize, of course, that implementation of any of the strategies that are selected is going to take some time and is almost certainly going to extend far beyond this timeline. So this is the general roadmap that we've established for this process and kind of how we envision it unfolding. But again, the content that we focus on and also the process itself is going to be largely driven by you, the participants. And so as we can, we're going to be as responsive as possible to your feedback and input throughout the process. I also want to mention that, we have some limitations right now with COVID. And so that is going to make it difficult for us to have a public engagement process as we normally would in local government. And so, as of now, we are planning for this process to be entirely virtual. But if you all have suggestions of how we can make this run more smoothly, that given that we have this limitation, we would certainly welcome that. And also if you have suggestions as to, how to reach out to people who may not be as inclined to engage digitally or may not be able to. So yeah, please let us know if you have any feedback on that. So now I'm going to shift gears just one last time and talk a little bit about, some of the different ways that we're envisioning you as a community member might choose to get involved. And we've thought about this a lot because we're really hoping to provide you with a lot of different ways to potentially engage in the project and different levels of participation depending on your availability. And so there's really a lot of flexibility in the type of role or roles that you might choose. So the first role is, for folks who really just want to listen and maybe attend educational programs and receive email updates. And so if you fall into that category, you probably would be what we consider to be an observer. And then if you want to do all that, but also have a little bit more involved role and actually participate in meetings and discussions about stream health, and start contributing some ideas, then you might fall into the category of contributor. And then if you're part of a group or organization that you think might benefit from hearing about what we're doing, or if you think that conversely your group or organization would have something meaningful to contribute back to us, we're hoping that you'll serve as what we call a project ambassador, and really help to share that information back and forth between your community or organization and us at the project team. Okay, technical experts. So I see some technical experts in the participants today, and we welcome you. We know that stream health is such a complex topic, and a lot of you out there have more or different professional experience than we have on our staff stream health team. So we're really hoping that we can recruit some of you as technical experts, and that you might be willing to advise us and share your knowledge and expertise to help inform the project. And the last category is a work group member. So we are looking for some really dedicated individuals to join our stakeholder work group. So, and this is the one role that would really require a bit of a higher level of engagement and participation, ideally throughout the year. So it's possible that you might fit into more than one role, and we recognize that your role could also change at some point. So for example, if you're an observer and just listening, and as time goes on you realize you want to be more involved, that would be completely fine. And so the one exception is really with the work group members, because again, we're really hoping to have a little bit of a commitment and a consistent set of people working with us throughout the year. So Serena's put up our website here, albemarle.org/streamhealth. And I encourage everyone to visit our website, and also the public input site, publicinput.com/streamhealth. And we've got a questionnaire up there. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and fill out the questionnaire and let us know how you want to participate. So we have some time for questions, and a lot of folks on our Stream Health team on the panel here to help with that.
Hey, Kim. Hi, everybody. This is Laurel Williamson. I am going to field some of the questions here and share them with Kim. There have been a couple questions that came in that I typed answers to, but of the open questions, the first one is, what is the current percentage of tree cover for the whole county? Is it regularly monitored?
So the National Land Cover data set shows 72% of the county is classified as forest, and it's not regularly monitored, but they do update the land cover data set every few years, and we actually have high resolution imagery in the county as well that we look at, and our numbers are a little bit different, but pretty close to that. So a little over 70%.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kim. Next question, how does the Albemarle County percentage of stream impairment compare to others nearby, statewide, or nationally? Has the percentage been increasing or decreasing or held steady? And I actually happened to, Nesha McCrae with DEQ is one of the attendees here today, and I on the side just asked her if she had any input on that, and she did some quick calculations and quick figuring based on their data, And it looks like about 72% of those waterways that are assessed by DEQ in this whole state are impaired in some way or other. Whereas in Albemarle County, I believe we've calculated it's about 56% of those stream miles that have been tested by DEQ sufficiently are showing up as impaired. And if the person who asked that question has any follow-up questions, feel free to type those in the Q&A as well. Yes, thank you so much, Nesha. And also, this probably is a question for Nesha. She did respond, and I'm going to find her answer here. The question was, I'd be interested to learn more about how the testing is done, how frequently, what is tested, who pays for it to be done, and whether it is done under a variety of weather conditions, including right after rain events. And Nesha explained, Nesha again is from Department of Environmental Quality, and the data that we've been sharing regarding impairments is coming from both Department of Environmental Quality and the Ravenna Conservation Alliance, which has a high level of quality control with their data collection, and they provide that data to DEQ, to the state. And so Nesha explains that as to the question about sampling, we rotate between sampling stations within our ambient monitoring program, trying to ensure that we visit each of our established monitoring stations for a 1 to 2 year period within each 6-year assessment window. We typically do either monthly or bi-monthly sampling. And she didn't feel like she could speak to the budget part of it, but there's lots and lots of details regarding their methodology that I'm sure can be found on the DEQ website. And Nesha, if you're willing to share your contact information in the chat, anyone who's interested, I'm sure Nesha would be willing to answer questions. Next question. Since we are part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, doesn't the 100-foot RPA, which is, it stands for Resource Protection Area, apply from the Chesapeake Bay Act? If so, is this initiative coordinating with any committee or board in the county that has been reviewing alleged RPA violations and subsequent mitigation actions? Do you want to pick that apart a little bit, Kim?
Yeah, so we are located within the Chesapeake Bay, but the Virginia legislation only requires the RPA for localities that are in the tidewater, so essentially east of 95. And Albemarle County has voluntarily adopted some of the provisions of the Chesapeake Bay Act. So we do have in our, if you look at the Albemarle County GIS, there are 100-foot buffers delineated on streams, and there are, some policies related to that, particularly associated with development. But it's not part, Albemarle County is not part of the state mandated area of the Chesapeake Bay Act. And if anyone else wants to chime in, if I missed anything on that from the panel, please feel free.
Great. Let's see here. How do you distinguish between streams and quote unquote stormwater runoff ditches? Does this project include stormwater management?
So I'm not sure if I understand the question of how we distinguish them. I mean, I think if it's an actual stream, that is flowing into a larger waterway, then I think we would consider it a stream. If it's a ditch that's not connected to anything else, then it probably would not be.
Kim, I can help.
All right, there's Frank.
Oh, Frank, go ahead.
Hi, Frank Pohl, County Engineer. So first, as part of the last question, I could add a little bit to that also, which was the RPA question. So yeah, we do have buffers in the county, and they are focused on development activities. So we adopted the buffers, not entirely from the Chesbay, but portions of it, which allow us to apply those buffers for development type projects, or land disturbing projects, I should say. With regards to streams, we rely on a couple of things. We rely on USGS. So streams, waters of the state is how we define streams. The Army Corps helps us with defining streams. They don't distinguish between intermittent or perennial streams. We do distinguish between intermittent, perennial, and there's a way to do that. So we've located all of what we think our streams on our GIS map. So all of those are located. They are not, it's not perfect. We may add streams, we may remove streams, not if it's a stream, but if it's not a stream and we find that we have a buffer on what is actually a ditch, then we can remove it because it's not a stream. But if it is a stream, we do show the buffers, and our GIS map should show all of those. We have found where we've missed some up in the upper reaches of the watersheds, which we have been working on to get those shown correctly. But typically it has to do with stream health, the bed and bank, and we have definitions of intermittent and perennial streams in our ordinance, which you can always look up if you want to dig into that a little bit.
Great. Thanks so much, Frank. There's a couple of questions about the work group role. First question, how big do you anticipate the work group will be? How much time per week do you anticipate it requiring?
So that's a good question. And the short answer is that at this point, we don't know. We have had quite a lot of interest, at least from the survey, in folks who want to be a part of the stakeholder work group. I think there's 21 people who have responded at this point. And we plan to leave that open for a few more weeks. And so if it does turn out to be a larger group, it's possible that we might divide that into smaller groups to focus on specific topics. And so, we don't have a schedule laid out at this time, but I think that it also might depend on the participants themselves and, how much they're able to do and what time frame and times of day, et cetera, work best for them. So yeah, it's kind of still to be determined, but and it also, could be somewhat determined by who is in the group.
Okay, and a follow-up question about the work group. Who is the best contact to reach out to about joining the work group? Also, I'd like to be a contributor, but what is the content of a work group specifically, which I think you just spoke to. So best contact?
You can reach out to me directly, and my email is kbscioli@albemarle.org, but you can also, my name is a little tricky, so you can also just email streamhealth@albemarle.org, and that goes to us as well.
Great, thank you. What financial technical support options are currently exist for Albemarle County rural landowners interested in performing riparian restoration work? This would be in addition to NRCS cost share and soil and water programs.
So in addition to that,
it sounds like the person who asked this is familiar with NRCS and soil and water programs, but is wondering if there's any more financial or technical support beyond those.
For restoring stream buffers?
It looks like performing riparian restoration work.
Riparian restoration work. Okay. Well, I'm not aware of anything, through the county at this time, but there is, and some of you can help me out with it. I think it's the James River Association has their program where in the James River watershed, they will actually pay for, I think it's 100% cost share to plant buffers in certain areas. So that's an option that you could explore if that's something you're looking to do. But other than that, if anyone else has an idea, I'm not aware of anything else in the county at this time.
Kim, we have Lonnie has raised his hand. I don't see him now. Perhaps to answer that question or respond to that question. Lonnie, you can unmute yourself now and respond or continue.
Yeah, so the Stormwater Conservation District, we have a bunch of different funds. We have the funds from NRCS, we have funds from DCR, but we also do sometimes have local funds. Sometimes we'll have funds from Albemarle County, specific TMDLs, or as was previously mentioned, sometimes we'll have special grants like from the James River Association. So I know we were already mentioned, but it's worth noting that we have a lot more programs than some people are aware of.
Thank you, Lonnie. Next question, how do you coordinate with the city since water flows without recognizing boundaries?
That's a good question.
I have some input on that, but do you have some input as well, Kim?
But go ahead, Laurel, and then we can pass it to him if he has additional information.
Okay. Yeah, we coordinate a lot with both the city and UVA regarding stormwater management, and also in a lot of different ways. You're exactly right that water flows without recognizing boundaries, and so that those partnerships have been really important for us to look at our impairments. And finding solutions. We were just, my colleague and I were just on a call yesterday with staff people from the city and UVA discussing how to deal with some of our local water pollution and figuring out, our solutions to the pollution diet of sorts that we need to comply with and work towards. But Frank, I don't know if you want to add anything?
I'm more in a regulatory, the front end construction side of things. So we have pretty distinct lines when it comes to the regulatory function of the city and the county. So we focus on trying to maintain compliance with our construction activities, and that's our main focus.
Right. Thank you.
Not the county's main focus, but my division, the engineering division's main focus. I know we're working on other things, and we do coordinate when we have projects that might overlap, and UVA does contact us when there are projects that they are doing that may affect the county. So there is communication, but from a regulatory perspective, we focus on the county projects.
Great. Thank you. Next question, is there a resource for a landowner to do a stream health assessment? Kim, I was actually thinking that this might be a good question for Lisa Wittenborn with the Ravenna Conservation Alliance. Lisa, I know I'm completely putting you on the spot. I'm not even sure if you have the capability to answer that question right now, but if you do, we can, I'm allowing you to talk here, and feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to answer that question. I think Ravenna Conservation Alliance has some kind of citizen-based type assessments that can be done on streams.
Thanks, Laurel. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, great. We are talking more and more about trying to figure out a way to do some assessments on private properties that are not part of our routine monitoring program. So at this point, I think the best thing would be for people to get in touch with us so we can get a sense of how many folks are interested. I think we have some monitors who would be willing to go out and do this, but we don't have a standing program to do a lot of monitoring outside of our consistent set of sites. I'll put my email in the chat, and then if anyone wants to get in touch with us, about their specific property, we can start that conversation.
That's perfect. Thanks so much, Lisa. I really appreciate it. And I saw that you also put a link in the chat that shows your most recent stream health report that just came out a few weeks ago. And I believe that covers 2 or 3 years of water quality monitoring within the Ravenna watershed. Is that right?
Yes, it would cover the previous 3 years all together. We kind of lumped the 3 years together to even out any influence of weird precipitation events and things like that. And that, I think I actually just put it up for the panelists, so I'll share it out with everybody. And if you have questions about that report or any of the particular streams, you can also get in touch with us about that directly.
Great, perfect. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'm also noticing that in the chat, Karen Firehawk, thank you. Hi, Karen. Put a link. Actually, it's just to the panelists. Oh no, it's to all the attendees. It's the jamesriverbuffer.org website, which Kim was talking about some funding for planting stream buffers that the James River Association kind of manages. And so if you are a landowner that's looking for financial funding for that kind of work, take a look at that website. All right, we've got one final question in the Q&A. And it says, this is obviously a challenging year for the county. How does this effort fit within competing priorities the county must have? It's a great question.
It is a good question, and there is a lot going on. It is within community development's work plan for the year, and I think there's also opportunities for it to overlap with, some of the other work that's going on in the county. Potentially the climate action plan. So as far as I know, we have support for it, and but it is a challenging time, and we recognize that. So given that, we ask that you all be patient with us as well. I don't know if Bill, if you have anything else to add about that. If you're there.
I'm here. It is a challenge, and it's something that's in the community development work program, which goes back before the Board of Supervisors, either late February or early March. I can't remember which. So there's a constant evaluation of the work program and the resources that can be devoted to it. Hope that answers.
All right, that is it for the questions. There's still some conversation going on in the chat, but that's all the questions, Kim.
All right. Thank you all for coming, and please do go and fill out our questionnaire if you haven't already. And if you have already, we will be back in touch soon with our next steps.
All right, thanks everyone.